Hello and welcome back to my Hogwarts series. Today is a quick video to show you the newest addition to Hogwarts, the Great Hall Courtyard. The courtyard is an integral part of Hogwarts. It connects the viaduct bridge between the Great Hall and the rest of the school, and is the setting for many important moments in the story. I wanted to make sure I could get it just right, but first I had to pick which courtyard I wanted to build. In the movies, there's actually two different versions of the courtyard, one from movies 1 through 6, and one from the Deathly Hallows. I prefer the look of the first version, so that's what I went for. To really get the look of the courtyard right, I found some good reference photos and made a prototype before I started building up on my actual base. I played around with a couple of different versions, but ultimately chose this one because it captured the most amount of details while taking up the least amount of space. Once my prototype was complete, I just used that as a model to lay out all of my arches on the base. Having everything properly laid out in the beginning was really important because I wanted to make a stone flooring with lots of different plates and tiles, and once that was placed down, it would be really hard to change things up. But of course, none of that actually mattered because I ended up having to take it apart anyways, but we'll get to that later. Having that first layer of bricks down made it super easy to build everything up. I just copied my design all the way around the courtyard, making sure to leave 2 gaps to act as doorways that will lead to the staircases later on. And once all the arches were built up, the roof was actually a lot more straightforward than I expected it to be. I had originally wanted to use wedge plates in the corners to get a little more of a polished look, but I gave up on that pretty quickly in favor of having the plates just side by side. I think it looks fine, and it saved me a bit of a headache trying to deal with the angles of the wedge plates. I also decided to add some foliage along the sides of the courtyard and on the roof, and I'm really glad I did because I think it adds a lot of extra detail and life to the build. Once this main section of the courtyard was complete, all I needed to do was connect it to the Great Hall. I don't want it to actually physically connect, otherwise it would make it much more difficult to take apart later on. The plan is for the rocky bases underneath to hold them in place so it appears as if they are connected. To sell this illusion though, I needed to build up some walls on the Great Hall itself so that it can blend seamlessly with the courtyard when they're put together. On the side facing the front, I replicated the archway pattern, and on the back is just a blank wall because I didn't quite have enough room to make more archways, and you're not going to see that side anyway. So now when the two pieces are put together, they blend seamlessly. I also changed the fencing on the front of the Great Hall to dark tan so that the colors are a little more cohesive between the two builds. You would think that this is the end of the build, but I actually ran into a bit of an issue after I finished the courtyard. So I've had the courtyard finished, quote unquote, for about a week now, and as I've been looking at it on my work table over the past week, I can't help but get this feeling like it might be too big. Like, if you take a look at this, the courtyard is the same width as the Great Hall itself, and I knew that it was going to be a little out of proportion, but I feel like this is just too much. So what I'm thinking is moving over this our open archway over here so that the courtyard finishes right about here, and I think that'll still look decently proportionate without cutting out too much of the Great Hall space. So yeah, you might notice that the courtyard that's sitting in front of me now is not the same size as the one I've been showing in the clips. It was just too large, and when it was placed on my Hogwarts table, it was dwarfing the Great Hall. So I took apart the front half of the courtyard and rebuilt it. Thankfully, it took me under 2 hours to do this, and it was so worth it, because now I feel like it's a lot more proportionate. With the courtyard finished for real this time, and my bricks still all over my table, I decided to make this side building to go next to the Great Hall. This building on real Hogwarts is meant to connect the Great Hall to the staircase tower, but for my purposes, it's just a closed-in building. This just sits right next to the Great Hall, where it also has a bit of an illusion of being connected. I have this 1x12 section on the side of the Great Hall that allows this building to appear connected. The building also has a bit of an overhang on the roof, so that I didn't have to make a 1x12 roof section. When side by side, you can hardly tell that they're two different pieces. So with that, the Great Hall courtyard and the side building are complete. My next step in this project is to make the staircase tower, which I've already started working on to get an idea of the sizing and the pieces I might need. I'm hoping I can get this done within a reasonable time because I have this ambitious goal of having all of the buildings that are part of the Great Hall to be built up with the rocky bases and water so that I can display my huge final build at Bricks in the Six this November. But depending on how that staircase tower goes, that may or may not happen. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and make sure to subscribe or follow me on Instagram if you want to keep getting updates on this project. See you next time!